and we can circle back on that. What I care about is this. And so I float this question to you guys. Let's just assume for a second it's totally secure. My question to Aussie and you guys was, is this move by Ledger moving us away from Web3 ethos or not? This idea of, no, not my keys or whatever it is, not my keys, not my crypto, right? But that's actually not such a hard rule in this world, right? Because like you could forget your keys and apparently get back to your crypto. Am I mistaking the thing?
No, you're not mistaken. You could get, if you forgot your keys to your ledger, you can get your coins back.
So, I mean, how does this affect Web3 philosophy, crypto philosophy? I mean, does it shake anything up at all, or is it it's just convenient? I mean,
I think it's just getting ready for mass adoption. I don't think many people on this planet have the ability to hold their own value and then also have the responsibility to I don't know. I think it just comes down to human.
I want to hear that you say that sentence again because I want to know. I want to make sure I know what you mean by that. Most people can't hold their own value. What are you thinking there? What do you mean?
Most people are just not great stewards of their own money, of their own economic energy.
That's what I thought you were saying.
I have no issue with saying that.
I know. I'm with you.
Everyone who's listening, I talk with my friends all the time because they're like, why don't you want to go out on the weekend? We're going to go to the club or we're going to go do something or I'm going on this trip. Yeah. And I'm like, because that's not aligned with where I'm trying to put my economic energy right now.
Yes.
And so, and I tell people all the time, like, look, if you want to hear me talk about Bitcoin, we can do it.
Yeah.
And if I start to talk about Bitcoin, I'm going to tell you that I think it's easily going to get to $1 million by 2030. Yeah. When I say easily, it's going to be rough. There's going to be losses, this, that, Dungeons, Dragons, but I do think it's going to get to $1 million. So if you have that premise and it's at, we'll call it 25,000 right now. It's not a little bit higher, but for math's sake, that means every dollar I spend right now could be worth $40, right? Because it's a 40x and that's where my mind is. And so the reason why they're doing this is to allow people, because I can't imagine how many people have come to Ledger and said, hey, you know what? My house burnt down and I actually had all of my, my 5 seed phrase cards, they were all written down. Yeah. And my house burnt down and my ledger was inside and I was on vacation. Like, let's just go with that. And if you look on their website, which is ledger.com/recover, you'll see, and they have a really cool video, which I think you should watch, but you'll see down at the bottom, they have all these screenshots, which are just tweets. And it says,
I saw this. Go ahead.
Yeah. It says wrote my recovery phrase in a piece of paper, which I lost during a move. Still got a couple of ETH sitting in it. Wrote a word twice, wrote my recovery phrase down with some tricks, forgot the tricks, rip Bitcoin. Like they're just trying to allow the product to be able to have an out because human nature happens. People forget things. And I think that that's completely fine. And they're basically trying to get ready for 2025 when people come in and are like, you're telling me if I forget these 12 words, I'm fucked. It's like, yes, you are, but we also have this new solution that we're putting out there. And I thought it was really great, the video that they've done. And so I just thought it was like, and I want to go back to your primary question here, because I think that I get now what you're saying about we're not worried about the tech. We're more worried about what this means for the space. Yes. I think that the way that they launched it by having their CTO talk about it was really genius. I think they have great videos on it, but I just loved watching Web3 and crypto melt down for the past 8 hours on Twitter and being like, burn your ledgers. This is stupid. Oh, we're going to get, no, you're not. You're not going to do that. You're just not going to do that because all you have to do is opt out of this brand new shiny object that you don't want to deal with anyways, because you're a degen, you're a crypto person. You've already set up your hard wallet accordingly and you don't want to have to change it or move it. Like Ashley Decans was like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to move my money. It's just too much work. She said something like, I'm TLDRing that. But getting back to your thing, I think it's totally against the ideas of the way crypto has been set up or thought about. But I'm also open to the idea that in the future, there will be custodians that will keep your seed phrase and they'll just be biometrically backed up. And the one thing I thought, and I will send this to Arculus, is that they're trying to be Arculus, because the way that you get your seed phrase, if you lose it, is you have to use your facial recognition.
Yes.
Which is your biometrics, which is
something that a bunch of things are already doing. There's a Finavant is they launched through DeFi through Web3, but they're building biometric security for everything, essentially, including a biometrically safe phone. With and so I think biometrics are the future, and I definitely think custodianship is going to be the future of mass adoption because
Interesting. Custodianship. Interesting.
this is actually a conversation I've had in the Obsidian Council 2 or 3 times now, where we've talked about, when I die,
Yes.
how have you prepped your spouse or your partner or your kids to get access to your crypto?
Oh yeah, legacy planning is a
Like
huge
legacy
one.
planning, essentially.
Yeah.
Legacy planning. How do you legacy plan for when you die and you've got crypto, and maybe your spouse is not exactly Web3 native?
Oh yeah.
And we had one guy in the Obsidian Council. He's like, I've got a book with all my seed phrases in it,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it literally on the front it's plastered, incredibly important, do not lose. And he's got it stored in I think he's got it stored in a safety deposit box.
Oh my gosh. That's
When
hilarious.
people store their crypto in the TradFi space, somewhere Satoshi's rolling over in his code, whatever he lives in.
But I also think it points to, there's the ideal, and I think we should all be striving for the ideal. And you go to Satoshi white paper and you get this ideal of a future. And there's this thing in design. There's an anecdote we always tell in design, and it's this. It's, you see how sidewalks, you ever walk in a neighborhood where a sidewalk comes to an intersection at a perpendicular, and yet you look in the grass and people have been cutting through the grass. And when you see that, at some point when you see that, you think, man, I'm going to create a law that says anyone who cuts through the grass is donezo. And then you're like, no, I'm going to put up a fence, and it's going to be a wood fence. And then it's like, well, that looks trashy. So then you replace the wood fence with a brick fence. And eventually you're like, I'm going to make these people walk to the corner. But human design, good UI, actually says, why don't you pave the curve part? That's human nature. And in design, you have to not only be a builder of the future, but you also kind of have to observe default human functions and make concessions. You don't always have to flex entirely, but you do have to make concessions. Good evening, Allison. I've been watching your motorcycle rides. I've been watching your walks in the English countryside. Man, it looks like you're enjoying some fresh air for sure. I hope things are going well. Go ahead,
Grant,
Aussie.
that doesn't sound creepy at all.
She posts it. It's not creepy.
I know. I like
posts
her.
it. Why
I
is it
like her Twitter
creepy?
posts too. But
I guess on paper it sounds creepy, but if you just look at her Twitter feed, man, she's all about it.
no, I know. I check out her Twitter feed.
Yeah,
Don't worry.
man.
I know.
But I
Aussie
guess
doesn't
my-
like it. Aussie doesn't like it.
He
Grant, is
feels
what he's
he
trying to
feels
say.
dirty.
He hates the countryside.
Yeah. He does.
He's more of an urban man himself.
For those who don't know, if he turned his camera, well, not here. This is an apartment, but like,
Well, you could actually know if I turned my camera, you could see the farm field that's literally
Okay.
just outside my office window.
But I guess back to my anecdote. My point is I think things like custodianship, I think things like what Ledger's doing is throwing love. I guess what you're saying, Jarrett, prepping for mass adoption, but said in layman's terms, simply adjusting for the average person.
prepping for humans, right?
Prepping for humans.
human design. And I think the thing that, and I was talking, there's a guy at the local supermarket. He's like 22. He's pretty 21. He's a pretty young guy, and we always talk about crypto. And he's just looking, he's like, oh, which one's gonna make me the millionaire? And I'm like, dude, come on, man. I'm
Stop,
not,
bro.
Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you, because then what if it doesn't work out? And
Yeah.
we were talking the other day because I was like, you got to get your stuff into a cold storage. Just do that, And I was going to buy some ledgers, and he was like, I'm like, if I buy one, just Venmo me, send me some money for it. You could even send me ETH, like whatever. I'll help you set it up if you need it. It's pretty self-explanatory, but get your stuff off. He's always like, I only have a couple $1,000s. I'm like, yeah, but what if that becomes worth $50,000 or $60,000 in 2025?
Yes,
Like,
that's
you
real
want
money.
to be, yeah, then it's like a thing. And so we were talking about that, and I was telling him the idea that I have, which is to probably take a certain amount of crypto, put it into a cold storage wallet. And I don't really need to actually put it in a cold storage wallet. I can put it into a hot wallet and then
Yeah.
take the seed phrases and then scatter them around literally geographic places and leave clues. Because even if you took 1 ETH right now and you did that, in theory, by 2040, it could be worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
And then
Are we
you
talking
just send
$80,000 in 2040? What's your number on ETH? I'm just gonna
by
as a crypto-
2040.
Yeah.
Oh, I can
2040.
tell you.
We're
By
talking 15
24, not
years.
2030.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm talking probably easily north of 150.
Interesting.
So, anyways, it's like I think that's a really fun scavenger hunt to have. A lot of the conversations we have off mic are how do we build community? How do we do it in an authentic way? How do we not force things? How do we make sure that it's organically done but strategically done? And it's like, well, if we just start bleeding out, in the future we have some scavenger hunt and we just like say, yeah, you got to go to Tulsa, Oklahoma and go find this clue, and then we leave like the code, we leave that one word, but you take 12 words and you scatter them around the world. Anyways, that just goes back to custodianship.
Yeah. Well, and I don't want to look past this, and it's hilarious, but it's true, and it's not true because it's crypto. It's true because it's human nature. Most people are not ready to steward their own finances. And what cryptocurrencies, specifically, not blockchain, not Web3 writ large, but what cryptocurrencies have proven, but I would even say DAOs as well, people are not ready to govern themselves, which slips us towards a paternalism conversation around governance, which I won't speak for my brother. We talked briefly about my brother Heath, and I respect Heath massively. Heath is a person that has worked both for the central government and also for himself as an entrepreneur. He's kind of walked in both worlds. And he's been in intelligence, he's been in economics, he's been in cybersecurity. And a lot of, he speaks very clearly about a very literal debate that the illuminaries around him have. And the debate is heated between these two things. And it is, should we give people all the rights that are available to them in the US, or do they require a degree of paternalism? Is representative, like our representatives, are they there to represent just your will? And like, my county says everyone gets cotton candy, so I'm in Congress voting for cotton candy. Or do we say, listen, I'm your representative and I'm going to have to know a little bit more of what's better for you? So I guess my question to you is this evidence, this move by Ledger, but more importantly, crypto at large, are these moves towards like the average layperson evidence that people truly are not able or capable or ready to govern themselves?
I mean, I've watched so many personal finance videos of like people that are like deep in debt.
Deep in debt. Not
like,
so deep in debt.
Yeah, and they're like,
Dave Ramsey's videos. Have you seen those, Austin?
I've seen some of Dave Ramsey's videos.
Saying
Caleb
she's like,
Hammer.
I'm 24 and I've got 900,000 in school debt and house debt and car debt and credit card debt, and I'm like, I wouldn't even know how to do that. But sorry, Austin.
No, that's exactly it. And I was watching Caleb Hammer, who's another one who does a bunch of stuff like that. He does financial audits on people, and I was dying watching one of them, and he's like, why do you keep missing these payments? And the person literally said, because I forgot. She had the money and she forgot to make the payment.
And the penalty fees just start stacking up and stacking up.
And it hits your credit score. And it's like you just have to pay it the same day every month. You could even set up on most of them pre-authorized debits. Payments.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And you could pay for it.
And I don't want to knock people, man. Like, you guys know I have real estate, and keeping up with all the real estate payments is not efficient. There's a huge opportunity for someone to build a SaaS that manages as a custodian of sorts, not as a manual thing, but as an automated SaaS software to manage all my payments for each of my properties. But like,
You
It can
don't
be.
have automated payments. Okay, in Canada, my my loan payments automatically come out of my bank account well, I've got mine out every 2 weeks, um, and
Not
that
all of
is
it. Not all of it. There's many cities and municipalities of government that do not. They might have the facility for an ACH. Um, they might have a facility for the ACH, but then they don't have the ability to do a debit card. And but debit card here, but no ACH there. So you have a bunch of payments in all kinds of places.
interesting. The more I learn about your banking system, the more I understand why it's collapsed.
It's not banking. It's at the individual level. It's at the the banking's collapsed. It's actually at the municipal level.
It's both. It's both. I keep listening and seeing stuff, and I'm like, how?
So real quick, I don't want to miss Allison's. I don't want to miss Allison's comment here. She says that is right. We need the masses to be comfortable. This is a transition, and we can't expect them all to be comfortable with seed phrases. I totally agree. We need developments to help them feel more safe. And as investors in this space, we definitely want more people to feel safe. We want more retail money to come through. And then she says, I think we have to be careful with our language, not able to govern themselves. I agree, Allison. It's a tough thing to even say. There are many people that would have a number of factors contributing to being difficult. Now, this is interesting. Now, maybe just forgetting, like maybe someone needs to be challenged with that. But what are some other ways?
If you're ADHD and
Yeah.
you can be forgetful, there are tons of factors that would explain why people may have challenges remembering seed phrases or keeping track of seed phrases, which is totally true. And we're talking about easier adoption, and I've been seeing lots of different stories about that recently, and one of them that we covered on our episode that just came out this morning on Decentralized News, we talked about PayPal. But we also saw PayPal is a lot easier than, buying on an exchange, Coinbase, or anything like that for the regular layperson.
Interesting. But I have found PayPal to be largely difficult to work with for years, relative to, say, for example, Venmo. Doesn't PayPal also own Venmo, though?
Yes, they do. But
you can buy crypto on both.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
But the big thing that I saw, and like we talked about on the show, is there's still risks. There's some massive risks with some of these essentially Web 2 concepts, because all of PayPal's crypto is held with one singular custodian.
Oh,
and it's not PayPal.
Yeah. I want to call this out, Aussie, and I think you're 100% right. I tell people all the time, if they want to give, that's how they get into it. I have a friend that's how she got into it, buying it on Venmo or PayPal. You can't send it off that. It just sits there, and it's probably actually just being.
No, you can pull it off now off PayPal.
You can pull it off, so you actually have a wallet.
You have a means of pulling it off. I haven't done it, but I know that was an announcement that came out. So,
and let's use specific language. You can transfer it to another crypto wallet?
Yes. Yeah, you can transfer it to another crypto wallet. That was something that they announced in the last month, I believe.
Yeah, because that's not how it was when I had this conversation a couple of months ago. And I tell people, even Robinhood now has Lightning Network, if we're just talking about Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But really having your stuff on PayPal is no different from having it on an exchange. Other than that, I think PayPal's going to continue to last, even if Binance or Coinbase were to somehow implode. So it's that. But I want to, it's okay, I want to go back to what Allison is saying here, because I think it's a really difficult conversation, and there's not really there's not a straightforward answer on about the language. I do think we need to be really careful about how we talk about that, because not everyone's ability to do things that maybe we think everyone should be able to do or not do is the same. There are a bunch of different factors that come into play with this. But I don't know. It's really hard, because the whole ethos of crypto is you don't want to rely on a system or a third-party system.
Correct.
You just want to send money, Allison. You're over in the UK. You want to send Grant money. You want to send him economic value just the same way you can send him an email, just the way you can call him up and FaceTime him, just the way you could even send him a package and probably get it there in a day, which is honestly quicker than a lot of the money when you send it abroad, even though that has changed. I must say that has gotten better through a service, actually a Web2 service called Zoom, XOOM, which is actually a PayPal company. All this to be said, I think in theory it's a really good idea, but I do think long term, Ledger is not the first ones to come up with this recovery system. And when I saw that they were using the biometrics as a way to get back your seed phrase without having to actually have your seed phrase, I just immediately thought of what Arculus is already doing. Arculus already has 3FA. So you have the app, and I have it here, the card. You tap the card, and that's their NFC. Then you put in your code, and then you have to show your face. Right. So that's how that whole system works. And you need all three of those to be able to do it, and your phone. And if you were to lose your phone, then you would need to be able to use those three to, set up a new wallet or just use the seed phrase.
Yeah.
So I do think long term, there's going to be ways where people are going to custody. And I could even see banks, things that people already trust, come up with really good situations where they're like, yeah, we hold people's seed phrases for people, or, or we split them out or whatever. They're encrypted or whatever. So just getting back to what Allison's saying, I think she's spot on. There's no easy way to say it. No one wants to have the nanny state, but then the reality of it is like every single nation on the planet has certain social services to like support people, like even basic things. Grant was talking about like sidewalk design. One of the things that you'll notice in the United States, at least in where I am up in Massachusetts, is our roads are really bad right now. And that comes down to like, you need good roads. And people are like, oh, I don't want the state in my business. It's like, well, this is why we have taxes. This is why it's Taxachusetts. If you look at the states that have the highest taxes in the United States, just as a case study, they have the best health outcomes. They have the best education. They have overall, more different. I don't want to get like political here, but they have different ideas about like how society should thrive and where that money should go. And so it's a very tough conversation. I think on the individual level, it's easy for the three of us, or even me, to sit here and be like, yeah, people can't take care of their shit. But like, I've lost stuff on crypto. I've messed up.
I think the responsibility. Well, first off, showing love to Allison's comment. If I know Allison at all, I think she's talking about vulnerable people groups, right? She's talking about,
100%.
I mean, we had a renter at one point, not to give this person's identity away. We had a renter at one point who was just challenged, and they themselves could not pay their own bills. They themselves were not mentally stable enough to manage what we might call a normal life. And in those scenarios, you definitely need support systems for those sorts of people. And I fully agree. I guess if we're talking in generalizations, and I am fine with talking with generalizations as we're talking about trends, I don't want to eliminate a vulnerable people group by generalization. So let me first caveat and say, crypto in general is not conducive to individual cases where people just either they don't have the mental capacity, or they have an addiction, or their life is off, and they can't keep track of a seed phrase, and they're living in a risky. Maybe they're at risk of not having, gainful housing or gainful employment. And so in those cases, I even think of dyslexic people with seed phrases. What a miserable
really hard
thing to just juggle all your seed phrases and then think something like, well, I'll use Google Keep, I'll use OneNote. These people don't even often afford super good organized smartphones, let alone, so they get stuff on physical notes, and it's like, well, if I don't live in a normal house and I have nothing but sticky notes, like, what in the world? Like there are people who are at risk, but I believe they are the exceptions that point to the rules of the groups that are adopting crypto, the retail traders. These are people who are the average person who really should, if you're able to throw 5 or 10K at an NFT collection, you got to be in the cognizant ability to lose that same 5 to 10K, So I agree with Allison that you got to be careful talking about people governing themselves. You're totally right. And I don't want to trivialize people that are challenged. But in generalizations, I'm talking about the retail person out there who was like, Like I just did a tweet earlier, you guys jumped on it where like this just in, the US crypto czar, what was the title? The US crypto czar promises to go after goofy crypto exchanges. I'm like, which no one asked for. Like who's asking for that? Because I'm trying to imagine the retail trader who was reading Wall Street Bets Reddit board, knew full well how dark and creepy that Reddit board is and how sketch these humans are, putting cat memes and like, we're going to make AMC run for the moon and take our money. They lost their shirt because they got in late and they're crying boo-hoo. I don't see the U.S. government going after Reddit. I don't see the U.S. government going after, like all of the banks right now. What's going on with the banking? No, it's crypto, and that's the agenda. I'm sure you guys saw the Democratic document that was leaked. Did you see the news slide about this? Austin, did you catch this? Where
I don't think
there was
so.
a leak of the Democratic Party in the United States, and the document was an explicit kind of vision statement of how we're going to go after crypto. That's going to be one of our campaign things. And that's what caused Charles Hoskins of Cardano, founder of Cardano and co-founder of Ethereum, early stages, to come out and say, you need to be a single issue voter this year. Now, I'm not a single issue voter. You guys know what that means cognitively. For the public, a single issue voter is a person who is so bent out of shape about a particular issue, they start ignoring all other issues, right? I personally can't do that. Like, I don't have the ability to be like, this one candidate is a jerk face, but at least he loves my crypto. Like, I can't I can't even with that right now.
At least he owns Bitcoin.
Yeah, at least he's not going to go after my CBDCs, or whatever.
my Shido Inu.
Yeah, man. But that's, all of that to say that, do we need, no one's saying nanny state per se, but like, do we need a crack? Let me ask this. Do you guys think we need a crackdown on crypto?
Not as hard, like everything that's essentially collapsed. I actually, you brought a great point to me just now. So I mentioned this briefly on one of our shows in the last 2 weeks. Bittrex filed for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
As they were shutting down, but the thing is, if you look at their bankruptcy documents, they hold what seems to be essentially one for one what they owe. So
they hold one for one of what they owe.
Wow. Yeah. According to their bankruptcy documents, they owe between half a billion and $1 billion, and they have assets worth somewhere between $500 million and $1 billion.
Why are they filing bankruptcy?
Because they're leaving the U.S.
That's the only way?
They're leaving the U.S.
Burn the ship?
Well, they got sued by the SEC. They're leaving the U.S., and this is the best way to make sure the assets get back to their customers.
They file the bankruptcy, and that bankruptcy burns not only the ship, but also the thing that's tagged now with the SEC case.
Interesting.
And then they liquidate the assets back to their holders, and then because of integrity, the logic goes, they set up in Singapore or somewhere else. And the idea is, the hope is that it's set up so that you're liquidating back to your holders and that they liquidate or move that money back to you with your entity elsewhere. Is that?
Maybe, but it's in any way they're trying to pay their holders back and give their holders what they're owed without having to give anything, losing it all to the SEC. And I think
that an overreaction, or you think this is a fair reaction?
This is a fair reaction. To me, this is probably the perfect example of maturity within the crypto space. Because
interesting.
They're doing everything. They're protecting their customers. They're doing what they need to protect their customers.
Interesting.
And do it in a responsible manner. They're doing it so that no one comes after them, and they have to pay out a whole bunch of money because that belongs to customers.
Yeah, man. They don't want to run like Justin Sun. So if you think this is the right thing to do, is this what Coinbase should do? Jared.
If Coinbase decides to leave the US, yes.
Interesting. Man,
Go,
that's
Jared.
wild.
Jared's got a thinking face on.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, Aussie. I really like that story, actually. I think it's
too.
like they're like, all right, we're gonna take our ball home. You know, I take my ball and go home, and I'm actually gonna burn the ball, so you can't even tax the ball anymore. And then actually the analogy doesn't even work. So
Yeah.
the thing I was thinking is great. You said, you know, can you say that again? Does the crypto space need checking, or what was it?
Do we need a crackdown on the crypto space?
So I don't think we need a crackdown. Excuse me, not a crackdown on the crypto space, because I think the crypto space cracks down on itself because it's a free and fairly liquid market. And so when the water goes out, the ones who are the charlatans, they get, you know, we get to see who's naked, as Warren Buffett famously said. I think what we do need a crackdown is on the TradFi systems and the legacy systems,
Yeah.
because when they like, the whole idea of Darwinism is that, you know, only the strong will survive and eventually the weak will fall off. And in crypto, that continues to happen. I was looking on LinkedIn today and there was someone, I'm not going to call this person out other than just talk about their case. They were so deep in Web3. They were on all of the things. They were running lives, doing audios. I was checking in today to see what they were up to.
Sure.
And this person is now AI, whatever. AI add in,
Like,
what
not
they were doing.
anecdotally, like this was a real person you've seen, because I've seen the memes about this.
This is a real person, and I will show you guys offline exactly what I'm talking
Okay.
about. This is a person who was so deep in Web3, and Web3 is going to change the world. Well, guess what? The bear market came out. Maybe they got wiped out. Maybe whatever. Maybe that was no longer the shiny object, and now they're onto AI. So, I guess my point is, like, and sorry, I got a little away. My point. My point is though, and Anthony Pompliano was saying this on a video I was watching earlier. He's like, well, the airline shouldn't exist, right? Or a lot of them should have died when COVID happened, when
Yes.
they saw 95% of their stuff goes down. But then what did
Yes.
they do? They, who are normally like, we don't want any more FAA regulations, we don't want, just stay away from us. The first thing they do, they knew that they couldn't sell it in the open market to a private equity, to a hedge fund, or anyone was going to pick them up, because they knew that for months they were going to be running a negative and probably burning millions of dollars a day. So what did they do? They were sprinted right to the U.S. government. The U.S. government bailed them out. Same thing with the cruise sector. Why were we spending billions of dollars to save luxury cruises? Who the hell cares?
Yeah.
People were out of work. People were losing their jobs at an
Yeah.
incredible rate. The economy stopped. So instead of talking about something that is actually built on a free market like crypto, which is
Yeah.
fairly liquid unless they're running a Ponzi scheme like SPF, that regulates itself. We don't need to regulate NFTs. NFTs are just going to all die off. You know, I
Interesting.
said in May of 2022 on More Than Blockchain, 99% of these things are going to go to zero. And I got some flack. But I was like, all right, let's just see what happens and watch. And now most of them are dying. I was looking at some blue chip NFTs today, and they're down 93% from their all-time high. That's just in Ethereum. And that's when Ethereum was at $4,500. Now Ethereum's down to about $2,000. So they're really down in real value, almost like 99%.
Interesting.
They're all slowly dying. All the conversations I have with many of the Web3 companies that we're working with Mercy Corps, they're changing people in and out weekly. So
yes,
I don't think the problem is crypto. I think the problem is TradFi being propped up by the fiat mafia, which is the U.S. government, because they just print their way out of it and then they just raise their debt ceiling. And to quote Pompliano, it's just taking a credit card to pay off your last credit card, and those two were paid off by a previous credit card. But because you own the bank, you never have to pay back the interest. That to me is the problem. We don't actually have free market capitalism in the United States. We have it. It's propped up by like basically whatever the government wants to keep alive. So for me, it's not really about crypto. I'm going to take your question and throw it back on the TradFi system and the banking system, right?
Interesting.
Like Kramer came out today and he's like, oh, Wells Fargo's good. And everyone's on Twitter like, oh, dude, you better get your money out of Wells Fargo. They're about to go belly up. That dude is the anti-signal. So
Yeah.
like, and then guess what's going to happen? They're going to do, the U.S. government will save whatever they need to save, and then they'll do an A and an M, and then somebody else will buy it or whatever, an M&A, and they'll merger acquisition it. So for me, the problem isn't crypto. The problem is markets that are being propped up by money printing, which we know long term is stealing all of our individual purchasing power. So I'm done with my rant. Welcome to my TEDx.
Do you know what? There's a TEDx every episode.
Every
And this
episode,
time,
someone gets
it
a
wasn't
TEDx.
me.
This time it wasn't, but great. I mean, do you think that we need to okay, well, let me change the question. If you were to try to regulate crypto, I guess that's the word I want to use, how would you do it? And what change, like what are the changes you would make to make sure that people are retail investors are being looked after better than they have been in the past?
I mean, honestly, the only practical way I can imagine is to just drag it into standard disclosure filings, standard securities filings, meaning you have to register if you're a security. If you're not a security and someone reports you, like for example, in TradFi, we say TradFi. When we say TradFi, we often mean stocks. And if we're saying stocks, we're saying people who went through and played the game. They registered or they rec deed, and so they're in that. But what about all the businesses that never registered? They're not on any exchange, but they are technically operating under the radar as an SEC. They promised returns. They gave out portions of their company in the form of stocks. And it's not just like an LLP or an LLC with managing members and everyone knows each other. Like, so what about all those people? How do those people get in trouble or get regulated when they start pulling their own rugs, TradFi rugs? So I personally, first off, internally think crypto people should use the TradFi term, not for the regulated markets, but for traditional banking and any market that traditional banking touches, which also is not shadow, but people not playing by the rules. But quite often we unconsciously think of people that are playing by the rules. And so I say that, I only call that nuance out to circle back and say, I think that we should put a requirement that if someone launches a token, it should be perfectly legal. You just have to register and you have to file. And in your file, go ahead, Aussie, go ahead.
Yeah, but filing requirements are absolutely insane. And what if they're not
Except Rec
US
D.
based?
Then just like any other stock, like technically I'm allowed to buy stock of non-American companies. I'm allowed to go buy tokens, but they're playing by the rules, and the taxation on them is the other tool, right? Like, so if I earn on a Singaporean stock, I still have to file that. And even though I might have paid taxes to Singapore for it, I will also pay taxes to the US government for it. And so I think, and just compartmentalizing tokens. I don't know about NFTs. In fact, if anything, I think NFT projects that operate in the US should simply be required to register as normal corporations and be monitored as normal corporations. But it's really weird with NFTs because, like Aussie, you're talking about some NFT project that is like, or what are we talking about here? And so I think that more than anything, yours is operating like the one you're talking about is operating like an offering, and it might be a private offering. And so technically, in the registration world, you would not be allowed to submit for they're only allowed, I think, 30 unqualified investors. So everyone here familiar with the qualified investor kind of?
You need $1 million net worth or
250,000 a year earned income. What were you going to say, Jarrett?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you could actually break down what you need as a qualified and unqualified, because I was thinking about doing a quick pod on that on More Than Blockchain, but I think it'd be really good if we just talk about that. And that's actually something we need to bring up a lot.
We should.
The
qualified
gatekeeping,
investors, yeah.
The gatekeeping nature of qualified and not qualified.
Yeah.
By the time you get in, you meaning the three of us, or
Yeah.
the retail investor, and I get into a stock in Robinhood,
Yeah.
well, some VC in wherever is already made 50x on it.
Yeah.
So
totally.
Cool. It's cool. I went up 10x, but
but that's normal in TradFi anyway, and that's not a. I don't think that this is a flaw of the capitalist power system or the central banking system. This has been like insider information has been a thing since pre-tulip mania, right? Like having insider info has been. If you've ever read The Richest Man in Babylon, this goes back to the Code of Hammurabi. This goes back to like it is human nature to want insider info, to early mover. So I'm not thinking about that, but it's kind of codified, if you will, in the American system as a qualified investor. As a qualified investor, the rules as I understand them, and there are other nuances to being a qualified investor, but generally, broad strokes, net asset values, not asset values, net asset values have to be $1 million, or you have to have a provable earned income of $250,000 a year, and there has to be history to that. So you've filed several tax returns at that level. Or there's a liquidity requirement as well, if I'm not mistaken. So you might not need $1 million net asset values, but you might also need 500,000 or $1 million in liquid, not equity. And so
That's
when you
insane. Like,
well, it's insane, but it's more
Essentially,
people than you
if
think.
you're a normal person, you're not allowed the ability to make more money or crazy amounts of money because we don't think you're smart enough. You're not smart enough. You're not good enough.
No,
it
to
has
get
nothing to do
access
with
these
intelligence,
deals.
unfortunately.
That's the underdog perspective. I have sat on the table of qualified investors as what I would call their bag holder. Like, I've served under mentors who were easily qualified investors before I ever even looked at that for myself. And the paradigm was this: do you know how many schlubs do not belong at the table?
Can we first get a definition of schlub in 3,000
Yes.
words or
What
less?
does that word mean?
So these terms, like, you and I both know that the average American, the gap between a qualified investor and everyone else is a huge moat. Like, it's a huge leap. Even for people making 100, you think, well, 250 a year is not bad, and you're like, yeah. The leap between making 120 a year and 250 a year, it sounds double. The intellectual moat is dramatically different, and so when you think about the average person, we just mentioned people governing themselves. For people to throw money against the wall and see what sticks, the average person who's in debt, like consumer debt, is these mid-level yuppies. They're in trouble financially. They might be making 150. They might be making 175, but they've never had money before, and they just blew it on a Bentley. They just blew it by going to Monaco because it's the first time they've had money. I cannot tell you the amount of people I've consulted that were making 15, 20 grand a month on an MLM. 15 to 20 grand a month on an MLM. They came from nothing in their background. This is a real story.
Aussie looks actually scared, and you told this story on Friday Finances. Aussie, do you have a pulse? I just want to check in.
I've got a pulse.
This
Okay,
guy,
all right,
so
all right.
That is
So
like
when you're making
brain-breaking
15
amount
to
of money.
20,000 US a month on an MLM, you are doing nothing. You have no costs. It's pure profit. These people were underwater by 5 grand a month and had to go bankrupt. This is not abnormal. So let's just call 10 a month as 120,000. 15 a month, you're approaching closer to 200 a year. Passive. All you have to do is pat people on the back, shake hands, and sell people on a vision. You have no responsibilities, but that is normal for people who came from no money. And so when I hear qualified investors, I do hear the requirements. I do hear nanny state. I do hear paternalism. But I do see a lot of people who you give them the lottery ticket. It's anecdotal because it's real. You give them a lottery ticket for $3 million and they owe more than that to the IRS the next year.
I mean, that's why the lottery exists, because they're going to give some random jamoke $2 billion, and guess what? They're going to take half of that up front. So now they're getting a billy, and they know the state knows they're going to get that billy back eventually. Like, and it's
nuts.
It's crazy, Grant, because it circles back full circle to the conversation we started, which was talking about ledger, talking about seed phrases. Do people have the accountability and the discipline to be able to guard 12 words? Never mind if they win the lottery. Never mind if they're getting 15 to 20,000 passively from an MLM.
Yeah.
And so I think it gets like really, really difficult. And that's why I totally understand why Ledger put this thing in. I think it's great. Ledger Recovery.
I do think it's good.
It's going to save people millions of dollars.
I think so.
Now, I hope that there isn't a firmware back door where someone could get in. I mean, clearly, I think they've thought this through. At the end of the day, they're not a technology company. They are a security company. And so hopefully they didn't
They have one job. They got one job.
You got one job, my guy. You got one job.
That's it. That's my only thing that I have against Ledger Recovery is how much testing and literally hiring a hacker and hiring hackers to try and see if they can find a backdoor into the firmware that would allow them to send that seed phrase, because
Yeah.
that firmware exists within the device. And
Yeah.
do they have the means have they found a way to get at it? Because now that you've put it out there by announcing Ledger Recovery, you've now triggered 100,000 hackers who are now going to try to find that path to that firmware break and that hack. And that's my only major concern.
Yeah.
But
I would agree with that concern, but I would say, is it any more so than the LastPass hack or the Bank of America identity theft or the Wells Fargo hack? I think of if I were to compare the level of security in TradFi versus this little move, I think it is a concern, but I'm still not as concerned about, like, I don't know if you guys do this, but every time you open a new account with Google, it'll throw up an error like, your username and password were found on the dark web. Like, do you ever get those notices? And you're like, yep, bro, that was the Office Depot hack. And that was, and you change your passwords and you move on. And knock on wood, my junk's been out there in a variety of ways, in a variety of hacks for the last 10 years. And I change my passwords. I do my thing, right? But I have yet, knock on wood, to be completely hacked. And not that it doesn't happen, not that it won't happen, but the probabilities for the average person are so low. I am starting to lean towards the benefit to onboarding more average users is greater than the probability of actually being hacked.
Yeah, my only thing is, what if you're, I don't know, you've got $1 million on your ledger and you're a big figure, and so they're gonna try to hack your ledger because they know that you're sitting on $1 million. The average person, not really, but it's just like Bored Ape Yacht Clubs from tons of celebrities have gone missing and stolen. That's the niche case is more just now that it's out there, but it's the niche case, and that's totally fair. However, there's one piece of news that we've got to talk about, because we've talked about it for the last
time on this.
All right. We could talk about it, but I want to make sure that your Bored Ape Yacht Club example is a really good example, because Seth Green had his Bored Ape Yacht Club stolen after he was going to do some like little documentary thing with him. But that's because someone can go find the Bored Ape Yacht Club that he wears everywhere, find the contract, and then start to play around with it. Like, I have a ledger. Grant has a ledger. Aussie, you may have a ledger. A lot of people have ledgers. How are they going to find the contract? You know what I mean? Like, it's a little bit less abstract. Like, an NFT is this is what it looks like. Let me go dig it up on OpenSea. It will take 2 seconds. And then I can, like, dive into where they're storing it and then go from there and start to get into...
That's what I'm talking about, though. Like, let's say they know... Like, let's say, you're Seth Green. They know they know you have this particular NFT. They go dig up the contract, and then they go dig up your ledger. Like, sure.
Got you. Okay, so you're saying in an NFT, because I'm thinking strictly crypto.
Well, I'm thinking both. Like, they can use an NFT pathway.
I see it now.
To find your ledger.
I like that. To at least find that ERC record, right? But if I have like Bitcoin on there, it's just different. And the fact that it's spread out over 3 different things and they're encrypted, it's not like just the LastPass where you have one point of like failure and then it opens up the entire thing. And obviously that wall is lead and crocodile moat or whatever. But like
sharks with lasers.
Just to get to like one Joe's or one Sally's ledger, you're going to have to do a lot of work, and then that work may not be transferable to someone else's. So I think you're right. That makes sense about transferring the NFT Seth Green to his ledger. Got it. Let's go to the other piece of news, and somehow we spent 50 minutes on ledger.
What in the world? So the SEC and Coinbase, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, we've got to. We've talked about it for the last 3 shows, and we finally have some kind of answer from the SEC.
So what's the official... I've got the thread up from Paul Grewal, and I have huge respect for him after him in Brian Armstrong's video. What's the verbiage? Because verbiage matters in these things. What's the SEC saying?
Essentially, maybe you'll get an answer, but we're working on it. It's going to take a long time to get regulatory clarity and develop regulation. And we're going to just keep using enforcement actions until we decide that we make regulation.
So, and so I just, when you said that, I read the third and fourth tweet in the thread. And for those who don't know, Paul Grewal is the chief legal officer of Coinbase Global. And he says the SEC told the court that rulemaking will take years and they're in no rush. However, they acknowledged it will continue to use enforcement actions as a substitute for rulemaking for the foreseeable future.
Oh, and
Who
then
are
there's
these
even
people?
then there's something even better. The SEC also said that the public statements made by Chair Gary Gensler are not formal advice or policy statements from the SEC, and the public cannot rely on them as such.
So why does he even talk?
He should never talk. He should just be the puppet that he is and smile.
If we're going to
Grant,
hold Elon accountable for his Twitter tweets and his Tesla tweets on stock changes, that's one stock. Gary Gensler affects the entire market.
oh, it just goes back to Grant, can you share that screenshot? We could
Miles
read
Jennings
through
link?
it. Yeah, we could easily read through it, but if you want to, can
No,
you
I
share
gotta
that?
bring this up. Let me bring this up.
Yeah, on the screen share,
Hang
because
on,
I just
hang on.
think that we
This
could
is
obviously
the
read through it
joke.
dramatically.
For those who want an official definition of jabronis, if you've ever been to New England and you've heard them call something a jabroni, this is what we're looking at. Miles Jennings, and I don't know who Miles is. Who's Miles Jennings?
He's the head of decentralization at A16Z.
Yes, I do know Miles. So I'm not even going to read this whole thing. You're not having me read this whole thing, are you, Jarrett?
I mean, why don't we do a dramatic reading? Do you want to be the SEC or CB?
I'll be the SEC.
Oh, all right, go ahead.
So Grant's the SEC. Come in and register,
We'd like to register.
but you're not allowed.
Why not?
Well, the rules are clear.
The rules don't make sense.
The rules, however, are the rules.
Can they be adapted?
Yes, but we just generally don't like your industry.
But you've adapted rules before.
No, we haven't.
You also approved our IPO.
No, we didn't. That wasn't us.
Yeah, you did.
Well, we're going to sue you.
For what?
Wouldn't you like to know?
Yes, I'd very much like to know.
Too bad. You should have registered.
But we want to register.
Bet you do.
Yeah, can you tell us how?
No. What in the world?
Miles Jennings, we were going to send you that dramatic reading that we had never practiced, and I think we did a good job.
I was literally trying to hold in the laughter. There was a couple of times, a couple faces you made, Grant, and a couple intonations, and I was just friggin'. I think I almost
really
fell
good.
out in my office chair. That's how far I was like trying to lean back from the mic, not to laugh into it.
When you read it out loud, it is just like.
This is literally though, but this is not an exaggeration. If anything, this is a minimization of what this has been. And one has to start wondering, when, like in therapy, my friends, if you've ever been through therapy and you yourself, the therapist asks you a question and you keep answering like, I don't know, that's just the way it is. And you're like, at some point the therapist is going to be like, I think we need to time out and ask you what the motivation here is, and if you don't know, let's say you're solving a major life direction. Austin, you're buying a house and you're feeling super insecure, so you go to your therapist and you meet them session after session, and you're like, I really want to buy this house, but I don't know what to do, and this is what's going on in my family, but I don't know. And there's one particular issue where you keep getting squirrely and weird and go, I don't know. And the therapist comes back and says, let's put the issue of the house to the side for a second. Let's put the issue of Coinbase to the side for a second. And let's ask a question and let's find out. And if you don't know the answer, then we should know the answer. So let's explore the answer together of what the fuck is motivating you? Why? What are your goals here? And if you don't know your goals, why are you acting without knowing the goals? And that's what's going on with the SEC. And Coinbase, it's like, well, okay, so if you have no reasons They're basically saying we don't have any reason for this. We have no rules for this. We're just in the business of taking enforcement actions. Okay, well, take it on the banks. Maybe some other day. We're just going to do it. And it's like, but okay, time out.
They line our pockets already. We don't need to.
That could be. And we could even say, okay, I will let you go to town with enforcement actions, but let's just take a knee. And let's ask why. And we don't know. We just because, you know? What, Jared?
This is just so good. I love everything about Brian Naughton says, I think I said it in a comment last week and I'll say it again. The SEC is involved in institutional form of gaslighting. Brian, you are spot on, good sir.
Institutional gaslighting.
No, I'm just laughing.
They're making us feel like we're crazy.
I'm laughing because I bought Gensler coin and it's down 93%, but I'm really glad I did after just our little dramatic reading there. I'm it's fine. Like, I don't mind, you know, we make money, we lose money, it comes and goes. Understanding why you lost it and how you made it are very important. And I just think that the Gensler coin is just part of the culture. And in years forward, maybe I'll be able to sell it for, I'm just saying, I'm going to say this. This is definitely not financial advice. Maybe Gensler coin explodes because he gets kicked out or something and everyone just wants to like hop on this Gensler train because the Gensler coin is all about getting him out. They were standing outside the government building with a BYE Gensler and then a BUY Gensler sign. Like, it's deep.
Yeah, man. We should take screenshots of our Gensler losses and say, no big deal. I've lost because of Gensler before. And then mint it as an NFT and see if we can't sell the NFT.
God.
I was thinking about a Fed Now one.
The CDO, dude. The CDO.
I mean, it would probably work in this season.
I think so.
I
would. Aussie's been hanging out with Grant too much. He's like, yeah, I think that would pump.
I could see that pumping just for the friggin' memes. I literally just want to do it for the memes,
for the lulz, man.
Dude, all about the lulz. I honestly just want to launch a meme coin for the lulz. Like the CDO.
What's your meme? Ooh, the CDO. A CDO would actually be an amazing meme coin because of the reference to the 2008 financial crisis, but it could mean chief degen officer. And then if you buy it, then you become a chief degen officer.
Oh man, that would be super fun. Yeah,
not a collateralized debt obligation.
You could roadmap and like, if you're going to do this, you got to do this all the way. If you do it and plan to rug people. So what you do is you actually come up with a roadmap and guess what? Come up with a roadmap and actually have a pin on here. We rug you here. Like, put a pin on it. This is when we're going to rug. But before that, we're going to launch our NFTs. And the NFTs, the concepts are the Yellens and Genslers of the world, generative art, but them as like punks, like 90s surf punks. And just like, they're the chief DJ.
Building in the open.
Yeah,
building in the open. We're building our meme culture in the open. Yeah, man. I mean, why not?
Time, energy, and lawsuits.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with that last one.
I'm not in the U.S., so I'm not gonna get sued.
Yeah,
there's no extradition with Canada, bro?
Yeah, you're going to be really excited when the FBI knocks on your door, Aussie, and they take your farm.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, well, I'm literally about an hour, less than an hour from the U.S. border, so they could literally come get me in a psyop at night. And
that wouldn't be a psyop. That would be a straight op. A psyop would be like you woke in the middle of the night in hypnosis and walked to the border. And
you think people maybe the 6 a.m. FBI knock are like, this is a psyop.
At this point,
that's like the exact opposite, my guy.
Guys, shout outs before we let everyone go for the afternoon. What do you got?
I'll start with my shout outs. My shout outs are to Allison for coming in and being really thoughtful. And I think her comments ring true. We need to be careful how we talk about language when it comes to governing ourselves. And I think it's a very interesting conversation because we've stopped to think about people that are neurodiverse, handicapped, even if you don't have the ability to see, right? If you are blind, how do you deal with your seed phrase? Like, that's not like an easy thing to do. How are you going to be able to, do other things? And then at the same time, the conversation around making sure we're showing up for communities that are underrepresented. Crypto as a movement is for the bankless and the unbanked, which are billions of people. So it's interesting how they kind of how crypto positions itself and moving forward, how it's going to be able to support people. So shout out Allison and Brian for hopping in the comments today.
Yeah. Big shout out to both of them for going there. And I'm going to shout out Jarrett that last point because we talked a whole bunch about that on our show that we posted today.
Nice.
Thinking about how the gas fee crisis that we're having in Bitcoin might affect how Bitcoin affects the bankless. And so big shout out to just that comment. And a big shout out to everyone who's trying to figure this out and maybe have some difficulties of some kind, ADHD or other kinds of disability, and are still trying to make it in this space.
Yeah. So I have a more serious shout out today. Shout out to Jay Harris. Now, I'm bringing this up for a very important reason. The three of us have actually been proactively trying to connect with our previous guest co-host, Jay Harris. We've actually made efforts from contacting old coworkers to people that have worked with them. And so I'm going to put out an APB of love. If any of you people watching out there have any contact with Jay Harris, please reach out, let us know, and let him know we love him. We've left voicemails, we've reached out. You know, he, as a co-host, we never met in person like we were able to with Aussie at NFT NYC, but Jay holds a very special place in our heart as a friend, and crypto and Web3 reaches anywhere. And it's just really struck us as if you have any contact or have an ability to reach out and connect, and if everything is fine, let us know that too. But it's time we kind of put it out there that we have not been able to reach Jay. And we're a little concerned, just as friends and partners who have built this show from the ground up with Jay Harris and has sown so much in us. So my shout out is to him, but also just an appeal to, if you have a chance and you see that guy pop up on the socials, or if you have any insight, please reach out and just put us at ease and let us know that everything's cool with Jay. So I hope that was okay, gentlemen. I surprised you with that, but it's been on my heart since we talked about it.
I thought about it as well. I was just thinking,
cool.
What are we going to do?
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, and Allison even, Allison, fantastic person, and she does have a good piece of advice, and we'll try this. We keep thinking about him, wondering where he is. Have you tried Grace Gong? No, I haven't. Maybe Jared has. We'll reach out and do that. Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I'll reach out to Grace Gong right now. I've reached out to some other people that are especially in the Toronto area who know him, I think, in IRL, which is also a different relationship as well.
Yeah.
Go ahead, though, and we'll see everyone at 10 a.m. Eastern time on Friday. We're starting to do Tuesdays and Fridays. So 10 a.m. Eastern time on Friday.
Yeah.
And Tuesday at 3:30. And if you want to follow us anywhere between those two times, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube at Not Crypto Bros.
Yeah. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a